All right, we are live.
Thanks for setting that up. Hey, everybody, welcome to an exciting week of UGA football, baseball, basketball, everything you can think of. It's a big week for the University of Georgia Bulldogs. Across the gamut, spring sports are here. Pollen's in the air. March Madness is a real thing. The Georgia Bulldogs are in the NCAA Tournament. We have Anthony Dasher up in Wichita. I know Coach can tell us some good Wichita stories, where to eat. He's up there. He's been covering the team. But this past weekend, the Georgia Bulldogs football team put the pads on. They had a big practice Tuesday. We got to speak to Kirby Smart after practice. So a lot going on, and we're glad all of you are joining us this Wednesday evening before the big game tomorrow and another big practice for the University of Georgia Bulldogs. I know we'll talk basketball here in a second, but Coach, I want to jump kind of right into football because it was great yesterday. We got Kirby Smart for about 15 minutes, and he was hot around the collar. And I don't mean that in a mean way. He was trying to set the expectations because Kirby's very honest. We asked him, "Where's your team now?" And he says they're a long way from good, and he's right. But after we spoke to Kirby, and we'll talk about that more here in a second, we got to speak to a bunch of his players, and it was a lot of the starters. And there was one guy that we have not gotten to see in a long time. It was Jordan Hall, and Jordan Hall's back, and he's healthy. And we asked Kirby Smart, Jordan Hall, your defensive line, you're rebuilding your defensive line. How healthy is Jordan Hall?
He's looked much better, much more healthy. He had his pins taken out, so he's screws taken out, so he's practiced much better so far this spring than he did at the finish of last year, and we need him to be an integral part of leadership on this team.
Coach, your thoughts on Jordan Hall?
Well, the thing about Jordan, he has a physical presence, very likable guy. He's got a really good personality to go with his skill set as far as being a very strong, quick guy, and one of the most highly recruited guys we've ever signed in a D-line, and came in here with high expectations and did okay the first year. Then he got hurt, and anytime you get those pins put in your ankle, it's really a big changeover to get back to normal. So he was trying hard at the end of last year and came in and got some good minutes and got some good practice. But I'm glad to hear Kirby saying that he's more back to normal because he's a guy that can draw a lot of attention by that. I mean, if you're setting up your protection or you're working on your run schemes, you got to take it into consideration where he is and how you're going to keep him from disrupting things. He's not just a guy that takes up space and draws blocks. He's a guy that can get across the line and knock the guy back. So glad to hear that about Hall.
Dayne, I thought it was hilarious. Kirby Smart said, he's 100%. He may not tell you he's 100%, but he is. And so we asked Jordan Hall, how are you feeling? He goes, I'm about 80%. And he said, and now to be fair, Coach, he said, Jordan Hall said Tuesday was their first day of running counter. So he got to meet a lot of guys who had a full head of steam coming to his side of the field. I bet he felt like 80%.
Yeah, I mean, when you get out there and you're a D lineman and you're going against just zone block or man-to-man, then you're not worried about a whole lot. You're just trying to defend your space and protect your area. But then all of a sudden, nobody's blocking. You don't know where the other guy's coming from, and you got to read your keys. I mean, you got to know whether to wrong arm the guy and make him go outside of you or box a little bit and let him go and take him on inside. So that it's a different animal for you. And the one thing we do, which I think really helps both sides of the ball, is Kirby gets our offense to maybe do some schemes that they might not do much just to show the defense because that's what they're going to see. We're preparing our team for the other teams as much as we are evaluating players. And then defensively, they'll show them some out-of-the-box stuff that we don't usually run defensively just so our offense can get used to it too. So, as much as you want to evaluate a player and his skill set and his knowledge and his ability to make plays, you want to also get your team ready for the teams that play us. Most of the time we outman them, so they scheme us. And they do some although there are some teams that are catching up with us manpower-wise. So you got to be ready for these schemes, and you got to be ready to read your keys and analyze what your opponent's doing.
Dayne, I like that after we kind of checked on Jordan's health, we asked him, how did it feel when you got the same diagnosis? You have another fracture, but on the other side, you're just getting back from one fracture. Now you get a fracture in your other foot. And he's like, man, I broke down. I didn't do it in public, but when I called my dad, I kind of broke down. He says it was mentally the hardest thing, that I've been through. I'd never been hurt before. I'd never come out of a game. And he's had 3 surgeries in 7 months. I mean, it's just I'm excited for him to be back because it feels like a redemption.
It does, and I'm glad that UGA put him in front of the microphone to share some of that part of the story of what he's gone through in the last year. And man, he is charismatic. He is funny. Jordan Hall, he's a guy that makes your team better because it's easy to be around him. I think Coach knows what I'm talking about in locker rooms, but there's something special about what he embodies there.
He's just stepping in for Brinson. I mean, he's just like Brinson and take over a room and very charismatic. I remember going to the first gala they had over there, and one of the things Kirby does is have a lot of the younger players greet the different donors and boosters that are coming in and show them where to go and take them to where they sign in and all those things. And Jordan was there right there at the door, and he didn't know me because he'd just gotten there. Not that they should know me, but anyhow, I'm Jordan Hall, blah blah blah. Hey, I'm glad to have you here. I mean, everybody that was coming in there, it was like it's the official greeter at Walmart, man. He was all over it.
Can you imagine the room with him? And Christian Miller is one of the funniest guys you'll ever run across. He's one of our favorite recruits to cover because he'd hold court. And now we found out that Joseph Jonah Ajoynier is apparently a comedian too. And so according to Jordan Hall, he's cracking everybody up. And he's, JJ.
It's good. I think you can't, football's serious and everything, but you got to be relaxed and you can't just be on edge all the time. Certainly you got to have the meetings that are, serious and go over things, but occasionally you need to break the ice a little bit and not be so tough. I know I like to hear some of these pro guys talking about when they were back in the day when they were, going through 2-a-days and all. And this one guy with the Patriots was always going up there and messing with the projector and, for the diagrams. And Dante Skonecki, the head line coach, couldn't figure out why it wouldn't ever work. And all the players were just, knew that this guy was busting him up, and he would send for the IT guy. And while he was going to get the IT guy, he would set it back up where it worked. It was just a real ball buster.
I could definitely see stuff like that going on in Coach Scott's room there. Again, it's a good group, but it's a group that has to rebuild, and you need that kind of comic relief because practices are hell. We're walking in there to go do the interviews yesterday, and practice is still going on. Kirby's ripping. I won't name who it is, but it's a starter on on defense. He's like, "You're going to lose your job." Typical Kirby. But again, Kirby was very I don't say disappointed, but he was very down on where his team is right now. He says we're a long way from being good, and he said, "Coach, that some guys don't like being coached hard." And
I think it's just a case of pointing out to the public what all of us know, like you and Dayne and all the different people. We're a very young team, and we've got to establish our identity. And if you haven't been around the standards that are used here, then you just can't talk about it. You got to go out there and earn it as compared to somebody that's been here 2 or 3 years. And the coaches also got to be a little patient, expecting these guys to be able to do all that because it's a major jump from high school to college. And we've got 27, 28 players out there that never even lined up at practice for our team. So it's a fine line, but I think it's great that Kirby was using some of his inner Coach Dooley stuff about.
Well, we got a clip.
Paint a picture of hey, let's get with it. But I know that we are young, but we are talented, and it's the bottom line is you just got 5 or 6 months here to get your team ready, and by publicly letting them know, and certainly that's all over social media, and he's telling them privately out there on the field the same thing that look, I expect more from you. You need to expect more from yourself. We got to get rolling, and we can't wait for you to figure it out. You got to go on and get it going now, and got to be a sense of urgency. And I think that's what he's trying to get across.
I think he did a good job getting across. He mentioned in his first press conference how 35% of their team was new, if you look at transfers and freshmen. And then he said, we asked our upperclassmen, hey, raise your hand or stand up if you've been with me 3 or more, at least 3 spring practices. He didn't say how many it was, but my sources tell me it was like 7 players had been there, at least 3. This would be their 4th spring practice. That ain't a lot. That ain't a lot of guys. And
plus, there's not many of them there that were on that national championship team too. So most of these guys are fighting for that first national championship too. So it's something that it's going to give them a lot to, shoot for, and we'll certainly, chronologically go through it all. But I always like a little bit. I mean, it's good to have experience and know you got all these guys, but there's also that little bit of intrigue of having a new team and molding it and seeing it come together and just being part of watching these guys grow. As a coach, you get a certain amount of little bit of a extra juice just seeing that, you just don't take it for granted. That's what you do as a coach. You find a way to make this team the kind of team that you want to represent your program. So I always enjoyed the new guys, trying to get them going. And but there's a certain amount of definitely
resistance.
Feeling good that you got guys that have been to the dance too.
Hey, Dayne, let's play the clip of Kirby Smart.
They have to be willing to receive coaching. And on the whole, my whole preach after the practice was we got a lot of guys that put their hands up. They're offended when you coach them. I'm not talking about the freshmen. I'm talking about in general. So we had multiple NFL coaches come through here, go to practice, and, they talk about how their players love to be coached. They'd love to be given a nugget, a technique that might help them play longer or play better. And some of our guys are offended by it. It's like, you're coaching me hard? Like, you're telling me I got to play with effort? And some of them, I guess, have never been held to that standard, but that standard is not going to change here.
One, that was Kirby wearing his workman's pullover. That G had seen some things on that pullover. And 2, the thing about this, to me, this is straight from, and I've heard Nick Saban talk about this now that he's not in coaching anymore. When you use the microphone to talk to your team as much as you're talking to the media and the public.
Yeah, I mean, it's everybody wants something out of this show and the website and all that because you love football and you want to get your team ready. And so with the good comes some of the, all the news isn't always that great, but I don't really feel this is gloom and doom. It's just, hey, you got to get it rolling. You know what I mean? And I've just been around some teams that to a certain extent. Last year, everybody's asking Delp and all these guys what went wrong last year because they didn't win every game. And so last year's looked upon as being a down year. I mean, which it was in certainly in some areas, but at the same time, you won the SEC. But I can go over that forever. But I said tonight, and when I gave myself a little pep talk because I need one tonight to get through this thing, but I wasn't going to belabor last year. I'm just going to hit this next year, which I feel good about. And but there's a lot of difference between potential and performance. And you got to be able to rise to the occasion, not only individually but collectively. And the good teams are ones that rely on each other and count on each other and depend on the defense and depend on the special teams and want to be coached. That's what you want. I've told this story before about I had Amos Lawrence, a really good player. He was a freshman the same time Lawrence Taylor was at North Carolina. And first game, I didn't get him in the game because I was wanting to put him in there and get him in there, where he could get some confidence and not because we were playing against a really good Kentucky team that ended up being 10-1 that year. I think it's 1976 or 7. And, they had really good defense. And after the game, I went, and I usually don't apologize to him. I just went over there and told him, I said, look, I should have put you in the game. I'm going to tell you that you're going to get going here. And he said, Coach, I believe in you. Whatever you think is best for me, that's what I'm going to do. That's why I came here. I came here to play for you and for Coach. And, that's what you want, belief in you. Of course, next week he goes in there against Northwestern and gets like 200 yards, and I look like a complete idiot. But that's what you want.
Well, that's what Kirby's looking for, and that's why he says some of these guys don't want to be coached. He wants to, like you were just saying, you get excited about the new group of guys. And last night I felt the paradigm shift. Now, we were asking Oscar Delp, Monroe Freeling, some of these guys who played last year, who started, what happened last year? How could you have 4 offensive linemen going to the NFL and not have the greatest offensive line in the nation? And they mentioned some things, and it was very I won't say cathartic, but that's the first time we got to speak to them. So we asked them about that. But we also asked them about the future. And Monroe Freeling, Oscar Delp, a lot of these guys said, look, I didn't win 2 titles. I wasn't here. I want to win one for me. So I'm with you, Coach. I'm kind of purging all the negativity from last year, all the whining about coaching and plays and who did what and who didn't do what. 2025's here. You got new guys. You've got freshmen. You've got transfers. You got a lot of things to be excited about. And, yeah, Kirby Smart is going to have – I think the last 2 seasons we were looking at so many guys who were involved in that 2021 and 2022 championship years. We're expecting them to do it again in 2023. We're expecting them to do it again in 2024 because some of the guys were part of that. They're all gone. It's a new group. So you got a new batch, and Kirby's trying to bang them into something that resembled those 2021 and 2022 teams. And Daylen Everette, this is a guy who came back to win. And he talked about what it's like to be under the gun of Kirby Smart and how to take all that kind of yelling and all the hard coaching.
Yeah, you just got to get them because, coming from high school, they don't really – well, in some circumstances, they never, really had the opportunity to get coached hard like you do here because, from high school to here, it's a big difference. Like, high school, you're probably not getting cussed out on the microphone. So, just letting them know, you can't let that get to your head, just hearing the message and not the tone, stuff like that.
One thing that I'd like to get across here, we don't have the recipe or the patent on coaching hard here. I mean, every place in the country coaches hard. So, I mean, don't act like, give us too much credit or too much blame here. That's what you got to do. I mean, look who you're going against. Look who you're – and people are going to have season tickets for Georgia football. You'll never have a season in your lifetime that you're going to have the teams that are going to be playing in Sanford Stadium. I mean, you look at who we got coming in here, and we got to have a team that's competitive with all those. I mean, Alabama, you got Texas, you got Ole Miss. I mean, it's going to be really an unbelievable year to watch Georgia football. So I'm excited about the fact that Coach Smart and his staff do a good job of coaching them hard, but they teach them too, and they build it. And getting back to what I said, I think part of the building process is you got to walk before you can run here, and you got to be able to do the little things to get where you all do the big things right. So, Kirby doesn't have he's not the only coach that gets after him. I can tell you that.
Well, the cool thing about seeing Kirby's comments and then seeing Dalen Everett's response, and then also hearing Kirby say that Everett right now is doing way more than he even realizes in terms of like leading some of these younger guys. When Kirby's creating this environment, he's trying to find the leaders on this team who are going to be the older guys that help the younger guys navigate what they haven't been through before.
Good point. And the thing about Everett with that sports hernia injury, he's able to do some limited stuff, but he can go out there and pull a guy aside and say, look, this is what you need to do. The coach is going to do that for sure. But, here's a guy that's your teammate that's trying to help you get better. And here's a guy that started, essentially 2 years. And it's certainly going to help us build some depth, the fact that he can't go out there full speed this spring.
I like that you mentioned the leadership aspect of it because Kirby said, I'm looking for some of these guys to step up. And he said, older guys. Then he immediately said, and I don't mean like by age, I mean year 2 guys, i.e., he put Nate Frasier out there. It's the first time we got to speak to Nate besides the Sugar Bowl. Nate, true freshman last year, he put him out there. He's like, hey, here's running back 1. And we're talking to Nate about what's it like to be a leader because he has to be a leader in that room. Now, I would love it personally if Trevor Etienne came back. I think Nate Frasier would as well. Let's play the Nate Frasier clip because this is kind of telling.
Yeah, this is about his connection to Trevor Etienne and Etienne departing to go pro.
When Trevor decided to clear out, I was hurt. That was my guy. But it just made me know I just had to step up to the plate. Really just. Yeah, that's really it. Just step up, work, and wasn't really affected by it at all. Just there wasn't really no change or anything. It was really just hurt that he left. That was it. That's my guy. That's it.
Coach, I picked that clip, Coach, because whatever all the stuff that gets negative about NIL era and all of this, if these players were as selfish as some people claim that they are, then Nate Frasier would have celebrated that because he gets more reps, more time. He's the guy. But he had a connection with Etienne. And so when he left, he was like, my buddy's leaving, and I don't want that. And to me, there's something pure about that.
That it hurt.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough deal for all of us hoping that Etienne would come back. But the reality is this guy was a number 1 all-purpose back in the country, and Georgia got him from the West Coast. Tremendous job by Dell McGee and Kirby and Mike Bobo getting him in here. And he's going to be a special player. I mean, he showed it time after time all year. And I just feel like that he's going to be the bell cow. I mean, he's going to be the guy you can give the rock to and he can catch it out of the backfield. And now that knows that he's the man and Etienne's gone, he'll even be better, I think, a little bit because he don't just go into a game saying, well, I'm going to split the carries and all that. Although we're going to have some other guys coming up. Hopefully the Robinson guys will be healthy. And of course, we got Cash and we got the other 2 freshmen from last year. And this kid, Bo Walker, is supposed to be doing pretty well. But we'll be good back. And I just tell you, Frasier reminds you so much of Cook and Swift. He's going to be big time.
Yeah, he's another one of those guys that they're putting out there early saying, look, I know it's only year 2 for you, but you need to be a leader, a upperclassman, if you will, by default. Not quite a senior leader, but you need to be a leader on this team. You need to, and you saw how well he played last year. And he's the standard. Daylen Everett is the standard. They were giving Big Jackson, the 6'10" guy, some reps. Not a whole lot of reps to the first team, but they're trying to look. We're going to throw you out there. Jordan Hall mentioned that Michael Uni, who people hadn't heard about sometimes, was getting reps with the number 1 team. A lot of the younger guys are being thrown in the fire in spring practice, Coach, to find out.
Yeah, they don't.
Who's your winners?
They don't have any number 1 unit right now because they were just trying to let everybody get in there and mix and match and do all that stuff. And I like that. I think the fact that some guys play better when they beside a guy that's a little more experienced that can give him a little edge at the line saying, watch this, watch that. And the thing about leadership on a younger guy, I think usually that guy in high school was a leader when he was the best player on the team. So he's ready to be that, but he doesn't necessarily take that role because there's upperclassmen that have that. But if there's not anybody, then he's used to doing it, and he's going to be a leader by example, and then he's going to say, hey, I might as well step up and tell you guys what to do because nobody else is. So I like that. I think that's what you got to do. And giving a lot of love to our whole staff here, they bring in people and talk about connectivity and leadership and all that, and they really work hard at getting to know each other and connect. And I think that really helps you as a team to get to know your other fellow players and know where they're from and what they're all about. And you just don't want to, like we had. I remember my son-in-law played at Oklahoma, and Ricky Dixon was a defensive back and good defensive back. Unfortunately, he's passed away, but he's got in the College Hall of Fame and tremendous player for the Cincinnati Bengals. And Ricky, was, he was okay as far as intelligence. It wasn't super smart, but he kept saying, calling Greg, hey, big guy, hey, big guy. And he said, do you know who I am? And he said, yeah, 73. You're 73. Ricky had the best line I've ever seen. One time guys were griping about the water break, and he played in mid-Dallas area. He said, you talk about a water break? When we were in high school, you know what our water break was? We were hoping that the coach would give us 5 minutes so we could go over to the liquor store and open up the faucet on the outside. That was how we got water.
It's a different era completely.
I mean, Coach, I'm glad you mentioned Nate Frasier being the number one all-purpose back in that class, though, because to me, what showed leadership as much as anything else in his comments to us was him saying, yeah, I learned and am still learning from the reps that a Branson Robinson took. I learned from the reps of watching Cash Jones work. I mean, that's a number one recruit in the country that could come in as arrogant as hell, and Georgia have to break that down. And he's looking over and saying, well, Cash Jones in practice has earned the coach's respect. What's he doing that I can do?
Yeah, I mean, you watch it. It's like I used to tell our guys in camp, watch the other guys in the drills and see how they do things and try to emulate them. And that's if you're watching other quarterbacks and you're getting recruited, look at this guy and see what he does. But the other thing, we had a new offensive backfield coach last year, and he did a great job, and he's doing a good job recruiting. But, Dell had been around a long time and had been able to mix and match substitutions and injuries and all. And it's a learning process for the coach, too, to come in and an entirely new system and work with these guys. And, you inherited guys that you hadn't recruited, that you don't know their backgrounds and all that. I think there'll be a substantive move upward there just because of that familiarity that the coach has, too. I think that'll certainly help.
And getting new coaches in the defensive backfield as well. Last year was their first year there. So speaking of, we got to get KJ Bolden. I know we don't have a clip on him, but KJ was kind of held court. Another guy who played a lot as a freshman that everyone's looking to be a leader. And I asked him a question that I thought you would appreciate, Coach. We asked him, hey, how do those transfer wide receivers look? How does Zachariah Branch, the former 5-star, the freshman All-American at USC, the crazy punt returner, the guy that put up 700 yards in returns, Noah Thomas, the Texas A&M's top wide receiver. He's like, Noah Thomas is huge. He looks like Colby Young, but I have to go up against, Zachariah Branch all the time, every day. And he called them both monsters. So, again, new position coaches in the secondary. Last year was their first year. They're kind of working in the Kirby Smart system. A bunch of new players, but your secondary is going to be Dalen Everett and KJ Bolden, who last year was a true freshman.
Yeah.
You got some reworking going, Coach.
Yeah. And like we said last week, the newer guys are the ones that everybody wants to talk about because it's fresh. It's fresh intelligence. It's fresh material. Everybody wants to hear about them because they know what our guys last year couldn't do. Don't forget Dylan Bell. I think he'll have a big year.
Dylan Bell. Colby Young, hopefully he plays. London Humphreys was running, right up there with the best of his hit. it's year 2 for Lyndon Humphreys. So a lot of talented players over there in secondary. In the wide receiver group, got to see some of the tight ends doing their stuff. And some very interesting comments from Oscar Delp we're going to talk about after the break. I want to touch on his comments because I think it was very telling about the difference between last year and what we expect to come down this year. First, I want to mention our friends at Athens Ford. It's the very end of truck month. They still have some deals out there. The one that caught my eye was they have Ford F-150s out there for $34,000. There's a couple here when you add in the dock fee, it puts it at $35,000. But Ford F-150 XLs for $34,000. You just can't get that. Now, if you want the XLTs, all the other stuff, those are a little bit more expensive, but they have great deals on those as well. I think we're talking like $14,000 off. So big deals constantly. Yeah, $14,000 off the Ford F-150 XLT 302A. The 250 Lariat up to $8,000 off. If you want a Ford Ranger XLT, $7,000 off. And even the Broncos are down. The Bronco Big Ben's down to as low as $39,999. So some fantastic deals from our friends at Athens Ford. Also, want to mention our franchise of the month contest sponsor. That'd be the folks at myperfectfranchise.com. Andy Ludecky and his crew over there are always anxious to hear from you. This is a guy who started out he started a gutter company. He started out a Porta-John company. He's done big garbage rental things where you dump all your garbage into it, then they haul it away. This guy has seen personally, he's got a bunch of different businesses of his own, but he has put people into hundreds and hundreds of different franchises because he's got 3,000 to choose from. So you go to him, you tell him where you are, what you want to do, what you're looking for, and he goes goals before he tries to sell you or put you or force you into any sort of franchise. Like, what are your goals? Here's how we're going to meet it. The franchise itself is almost secondary, tertiary. It's not even in the top 3 things that you're looking at. The goal is to get you to the point is to get you to your goal. And you can do that with Andy Ludecky at myperfectfranchise.net. We're talking about guys that Georgia is going to rely upon, sending out KJ Bolden, sending out Nate Frasier, Monroe Freeling, and guys like that. Well, another guy that came out last night was Oscar Delp. And Oscar actually mentioned at one point, he just we asked him, hey, what happened last year? You were supposed to be the man after Brock Bowers left. And he's like, well, this didn't quite work out that way. Let's hear from
I just got to last year there was times I feel like I had one foot out the door and I was just thinking about things I should have been thinking about, and it just kind of hurt me in ways that I didn't think would happen. And then I kind of figured it out later on in the year how to really practice and how I should really be leading that room and everything. And I think with a full year of doing that, how I approached that, and with just trusting in Coach Hartley and all the coaches and everything that we've kind of had a plan on and came together, I think it's going to be a good season.
That also kind of sounds like, and there was a point there mid-season, we just didn't see as much from Delp. And then towards the end, he really came on, Coach. You pointed out in the watch-along show, when we're watching, he's like, he's really picking it up here towards the second half of the season. And I don't know what he was reading or what he was thinking about. He says, I was thinking about things I shouldn't have been, but he seemed to drop it. And all of a sudden he kind of flushed it, forgot it. And now we've got a new Oscar Delp.
Yeah. You never know. Somebody might be hitting him up, agent wanting, you need to come out, you need to do all that. But at the same time, you got to do the production too. And the guy's really good with the ball under his arm. I mean, he can make plays in the open field and critical first downs, getting that extra yardage and make people miss, and very reliable receiver, and is a really good blocker. And I think the tandem of he and Lucky athletically, hard to beat that. And then you add these younger guys that we got 4 younger guys that really give us a lot of depth there, but over the years we talk about that, and then all of a sudden Spurlock gets hurt. So, things happen, and you can't have too many tight ends. And if you're having trouble running the ball, I always had the one offensive personnel group that, we called them posse and, 12 and all that. But I had one that just called GATA, which means GATA, which means get after their ankles. But if we ever got to that point where we were having trouble running the ball, we got that GATA group and put them in there. And those were guys that we knew that were going to the best we had, and we were going to do the best, run the ball behind our best guys and see what happened and not try to get too exotic. But it was always a good little percolator for me at every place I ever coached to get that GATA group in there and see how they could get it rolling. And I think both of those guys would be two that I would count on to do what you need.
Well, that was a good point. We got 7 players last night. 2 of them were tight ends. We heard from Oscar Delp. We also heard from Lawson Lucky. They look huge. They look great. They raved about Jaden Riddell. They said Colton Heinrich's still on the mend, but they think the world of Jaden Riddell. And then when you ask them about Ethan Barber, and Elias Williams, I mean, granted, they're their position mates. They're going to talk up their guys. But when their eyes light up and they're like, you've seen Elias Williams, and I've heard Ethan Barber's having very good practices, even though he is, true freshman. How does Todd Hartley do it, Coach? That is a ridiculous room. This coming off of Darnell Washington, Buck Bowers.
He's an outstanding coach, and he's got the resume of players that have played for him, not only here but at Miami and Marshall. Yeah. And the players sell him because they know they'll get him ready, that he will get them ready for the next level. But I don't think anybody in the country has a room of athletic guys like that. There might be some that have maybe some better ones, who knows. But the big point is we got guys that can run, that can catch the ball, that are versatile, that allow you to play, if you need to, less receivers and more power guys in there that can still split out. So it's a good situation.
The recruiting productivity at tight end is unquestioned. But I made this point late last season to where, when Carson Beck was having interception issues in the middle of the season, I thought the thing that expressed what Mike Bobo was able to do with him to get him to calm down, to me, that's what coaching is. Of believe in yourself, don't stop playing, go to the next play. Well, if Todd Hartley, he deserves that same credit with Oscar Delp, as Delp, if his mindset wasn't what it needed to be in the early part of last season. That's tremendous coaching in the middle of the season to get someone to reset and trust themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the turning point of the season, as far as I'm concerned, is Tennessee game. That pass he caught over the middle. I mean, that's a difference maker. It puts the game, lets you know that, we're right in there, and then our defense stepped up. But, there's a lot of plays you can look back on. But I think the main thing for me is, as a coach, very comforting to be able to have some guys that can catch the ball in traffic and give your quarterback a chance to hit play action. And just like those little things Mike called in the overtime where he put Delp in motion and then threw it in the flat and he made a first down, jumped over the guy. And then he came back the other way right before we ran the quarterback draw. I mean, those are confidence builders for the quarterback, but also for your team, knowing that you can keep the chains moving.
Yeah, I think when we see the 12 and 13 personnel this year, and this is nothing against Ben Urasic, I thought he's a good kid, but I'm excited to see Jaden Riddell, Lawson Lucky, Oscar Delp out there in 2s and 3s. There'll be some beef out there at tight end.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to put any unnecessary pressure on anybody, that's for sure. But realistically, if a guy's running 22, 23 miles per hour at 245, then you got to think he's got a chance to make your mouth water.
There you go. You mentioned bringing in those the GATA guys when you had trouble running it. We had Monroe Freeling, which is interesting because usually when a player's injured, like Dalen Everett, and Monroe Freeling, we never get to talk to them. If they're rehabbing, they are off limits. But we got to speak to 2 of them last night, and one of them was Monroe Freeling, and we kind of posed the same thing to him. We're like, "Hey, Monroe, kind of tell how are you now? He says he's doing good. He's coming back. He's had the shoulder surgery. But what happened last year, and what's going to prevent it from happening this year?
I think it really just came back on us and our execution. I think that sometimes we were, more worried about like not failing than succeeding, and and I think we thought we were more just senior heavy, so I think we thought we were there, but I really think that we should have focused more on our fundamentals.
Coach, he says that we thought we were there, but they weren't, and he went on later to say, I didn't win a title. I'm here to win one. And between me and Ernest Green, we're taking accountability for this, and we're not going to have those problems going forward. So,
I mean, you hope that that's true, but you never know. I just like the idea of expecting. I've talked about it before about when I was coaching Oklahoma, you winning every game, you worry about losing one. You got to expect to win for sure, but you can't get too caught up in worrying about making a mistake. But I thought Freeling played really well, except the one game against Ole Miss, a couple plays. But he's a stalwart guy, and I think Green being healthy. Last year at this time, we were worried about whether Green was going to go pro because he had such a good year, and he's a really dominant run blocker. We just got to get him going again now that he's healthy. That'll help us. But we got him and Micah Morris and Drew Bobo. So those are four guys that have really been in battle-tested situations, which a lot of teams like to have that kind of experience, even though we're young. And we've got guys coming up like Calhoun and those guys. But the one guy that just keeps the first person that comes up, anybody you talk to, or even any support personnel, anybody you talk about is Juan Gaston. I mean, just everybody said this guy's making a lot of headway out there, and certainly he's big and he gets your attention. But for that many people to be saying that this guy, if I go back to one guy that I'd said on this show, like when I first started this, when I talked about the guy with the big thighs from down there at Fromm School that's still playing for the Cincinnati Bengals, and he
Trey Hill.
We were talking about people that got my attention and everything. I said, watch out for Trey Hill. Well, you saw what he's able to do. He could play every position. He was a dominant guy, and I think I'm not saying that this guy's going to be Trey Hill or Thomas or any of those guys, but at this point, people respect ability. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
If you got it, people are going to recognize it. Like Bolden last year, people in spring practice were raving about this guy. We need offensive linemen, and he does have a little bit of heaviness to him. But when you weigh 350, you're going to have a little bit of body fat. But he got power and good feet, and for that many people to say that he's a player, that's pretty good.
It was kind of.
They must be talking about him at Chick-fil-A when you go to breakfast with this kind of. You must be hearing about him everywhere.
Those people don't know that part, but they did know that there were 83 people visiting for the weekend. That somebody said that 83 prospects over here come in and watch practice, and I said, "Are you sure?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "This guy." He said he took some food over there, and that's what they told him.
Well, if I remember last summer, because he wasn't here in spring, but when Nate Frasier got here, we started. And again, they're not practicing at all. It's all the 8 hours of whatever availability they can have with the coaches, but it's all player led. Middle of summer, we're hearing about Nate Frasier. We're hearing about KJ Bolden. You're hearing about Dylan Bell as a freshman. The ability stands out. And so you're hearing about some of these guys. Another guy we're hearing about is Elijah Griffin. Is apparently, this is a top 5 player. And asked a couple guys about him. They're like, he's the real deal.
This guy, mark him down. This guy's, we talked about him last week. So Elijah Griffin,
Well, there's another
What
guy.
excites me about, yeah, I think we're making the same transition because it excites me on that defensive line with the potential of these guys.
Yeah, so you get again, you lost a ton of talent. You're losing first-round draft picks on defense, a bunch of them. You're losing 2 fantastic defensive linemen. You're losing a Butkus Award winner. You're losing the first round of Michael Williams. In years past, as coach says, I'd be curled up in the fetal position thinking, what the hell are they going to do in that defensive line? But Jordan Hall getting healthy, Christian Miller coming back, Xavier McLeod started really coming on. You've got some bodies over there. Joseph Jonah Ajonia.
Yeah, you had him and these other guys. And, hey, our defense might have had those guys, but really, compared to other defenses here, was not anywhere near as productive. So
you're right.
These guys don't have to they just got to play up their potential. That's what we got to get them to do, and I'm sure Schumann will get that out of them.
Let's hear how close JJA is to playing.
This is according to Jordan Hall.
Everybody go through injuries here, and then everybody gets down on himself a little bit. But you rarely see Joseph down when it came to that. He has a thing where he said, because he's African, he like puts that out there before everybody, and he says his genetics are more different than everybody else's on the team. So if you ever get a chance to interview him, he'll tell him himself. But he just said just like this: my genetics are just so more superior than everyone in here. So.
I mean, how much does Jordan Hall weigh now?
We didn't ask him.
He looks like it, and that looks like I can't see that grade. Looks like he weighs about 215, but he's almost
245, coach.
He's cut, man. That guy's cut.
There's no bad weight on him. But again, we saw Chris Cole, how much he popped out last year. Justin Williams getting a lot of his snaps. JJA gets hurt early on, and this is a 5-star. This is one of the best players at his position. And, we didn't get to see him. So I'm really excited about all those year 2. We mentioned Michael Uni, Daniel Calhoun, guys like that. Guys at Mason Shore. There's a lot of guys on the offensive line that are going to come in. There's talent on the defensive line. And, Kirby has mentioned it multiple times. Yeah, we're replacing our entire offensive line practically, losing 4 starters. But he says, we run 3 deep on the offensive line. A lot of my fellow coaches can't run 3 deep on the offensive line. He's at least 2 deep on the defensive line. There's a lot of bodies over there. I know you won the SEC. You didn't win the national title last year. You're losing a lot of guys to the NFL, but all the work Kirby Smart's done, coach, in recruiting and in the transfer portal, still give me Georgia's 1 to 85 or 1 to 100 over anybody else's right now.
I like that. And you start talking about the tight end room, but certainly the lines are really big, being crucial. But the second element there with the linebackers, I mean, with the experience that we have with the first 2, and then you had Williams,
TJ Allen, Raylan Wilson.
Yeah, you had Williams in there along with Chris Cole. Athletically, I don't know that we've had anybody that he will test. When they do that combine testing with him, there's no telling what all he'll do. But all you got to do is look at him jump up and almost catch that pass against Texas on the interception with one hand. I mean, the guy is a physical, dominant-looking guy, and he's really taking the bull by the horn, just like several of those guys. Now that they see that, they see the linebacker tree here. I mean, you just look back to the guys at Roquan and just keep going through them. I mean, certain standards to live up to.
We should acknowledge the most recent defector from Georgia to the NFL. And yes, it's the Philadelphia Eagles once again, but it's Montgomery Van Gorder, who's helped with quarterbacks at Georgia.
Yeah, I'm happy for him. I hated for Georgia. Certainly came in here everybody just knew him as Brian Van Gorder's son, but he had a career where he played some at Notre Dame, but he came in here and he worked hard, and Kirby kind of took him under his wing, and he was really big at helping us plan practice and put the coaches in the right position and organize all that. And then he got more involved with the quarterbacks under Bobo and was a link through the headset through Bobo to talk to the kids on the sideline. And I don't know exactly what the tie-in. I know that the head coach at the Bowling Green team, under which his dad was a defensive coordinator, took a job with the Eagles. So maybe there was a little tie-in there. I don't know if that was it. But, he's going to go up there and be on the offensive staff. I mean, if you're going to go to the NFL, you might as well go up there and help coach get, Hurts. That's a pretty good way to do it. But, from our standpoint, we do have some really talented guys on our staff that have been here that were on other staffs, and Kirby brought them in here because they were under contract for a couple of years. Brandon Streeter was at Clemson and offensive coordinator, and they made a change. So he's been here for 2 years, but I'm hoping he's going to be able to stay another year. And then with Van Gorder coming, he can, Gummy leaving, I think more than likely that he would probably move in there and help coach the quarterbacks and help with some of the stuff that, practice organization, because he's a very talented guy. I mean, be able to pick somebody up like that and keep him here has been crucial. So I hope that he'll stay and maybe move more into that role.
Dude, this guy's landed Trevor Lawrence and guys like that. I mean, Brandon Streeter was the biggest thorn in your side. We're going head-to-head with Clemson in quarterback battles.
They've been involved in a lot of national championship games.
He sure did. So if you're a quarterback assistant coach and analyst is Streeter, then that's a hell of a group that you got there. There's a couple questions on the Dog fan. Let's get to those before we talk a little basketball.
Yeah, and it was funny last year because Streeter, from my understanding, still had his house in Clemson, and Matt Luke still had his house in the Athens area. So I wonder if they could just rent it out to each other for the season.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy drive, that's for sure. From what I understand, Luke has bought a house on that lake down there, and he stays out there. But everybody's excited about the Clemson Tigers. They got the quarterback coming back and all that, and a new defensive coach, but we'll see how they do.
This question from Bulldog Ben, Coach, if you have a freshman and a senior who are tied in a position battle, who starts?
Well, you let the senior have the first opportunity, and because he deserves that. But if the freshman's better, he's going to play. That's just the way it is. But always give the seniors first opportunity, but talent will supersede the experience.
From Realistic UGA Fan, 1991, version 2. Coach, aside from QB1, which position or position groups are you concerned most with heading into 2025, just as far as it not being a team strength at this point?
Well, I mean, as a coach, you never think you got it made, or you never think you don't have it. But, you got to hope that we can get those backs back, give us some more depth. And you hope that some of these young old linemen will develop. And the safety position, from a standpoint of we lost two really good guys going to get drafted. So the experience there. So I would say safety, O-line, and would be the ones that I would really want to see make a big move.
I'm scared about Georgia's edge, the outside linebacker.
Well, I mean,
you know more than I do. I just don't know who it is.
Well, I think we got some like 33. That Johnson guy. I mean, Charles Grant Jr. Man, this guy looks just like him. I just feel like he'll be a player, and then they moved the one guy that was playing linebacker over there too. I feel good about that position. Okay, yeah,
I'm just like I said, I just don't know who it's going to be. If like Chris Jones, Chris Cole,
you can move Chris Cole out there.
I like it. I guess we're going to a big shout out to Mike White and the Georgia Bulldogs. First time in the tournament in 10 years. A long time since they've won a game in the NCAA tournament. A very long time. But again, they're going up against Gonzaga, and the Zags have 9 straight Sweet 16 appearances. So the Bulldogs
just can't get too caught up in the jersey. And, the Zags didn't win the regular season championship, but they did win the conference championship tournament. Got a good coach there. And, I just think that we're good enough to win. It's just got to go out there and play our game and don't let somebody get on a run. Like we've had these games where a team get 10, 12, 14 points in a row. You just can't have that happen, get down. And of course it's a tough draw having to play Houston if you win, but hey, congratulations. I mean, he's turned this place around, and hopefully this will be a building block to get some more players in NIL-wise and keep on trucking.
He was asked today, Anthony Dasher up there covering this. Mike White was just asked about what this means for the program, but I thought he gave a really good answer of, hear it for himself.
We've spent 3 years rebuilding, and we're proud of where we are, but it's about Gonzaga, and that's it. That is it. It's about today and our preparation and playing really well and optimistically thinking if we play really well down the stretch, we'll have a chance. That's it. Everything else will take care of itself.
Proud of the program, but staying in the moment. I mean, that's the sweet spot.
That's good. That's good. I just hope Florida doesn't win it.
When I made my bracket, I pricked a Final Four of all SEC teams.
Yeah, well, you could be right there. I mean, all of a sudden, Auburn's lost 3 out of their last 4. Auburn's got the talent, and certainly Florida does. Tennessee is capable, but I'm looking forward to this women's tournament. I'm looking forward to that UConn Southern Cal game in the Elite 8. I can't wait to see that one. Juju Watkins against Paige Buchler, or Buckler, however you pronounce it.
Well, Coach, you are from North Carolina. You coached at a lot of places that had good basketball programs as well. Any March Madness related stories come to mind of things that you saw or experienced as a football coach on a campus during March Madness?
Yeah, I was working the ACC tournament. I used to try to make a little money on the side, and the SID let me do it. And I used to sell some of the tickets for the writers there, go out and scalp them. And they had this area underneath the basket where you could have where the referees could sit that weren't doing the games, and I was kind of in charge of that area. And this one referee comes in. I'm not going to say that it was his daughter, but it definitely it was not his wife. And I told him that she couldn't sit there. It was just reserved for referees, and he was going on, and it was a real incident. I had to go get the policeman to move him out of there. But so, I thought I did my job, but that was pretty awesome, man. This guy comes in, and she was a good-looking young girl too, but I couldn't believe he had enough guts to bring her down there like that.
Oh, wow.
That's a good story, isn't it, for Mark?
That's a great story. I just didn't know where that was going with that.
Yeah, I moved him right out of there. I got him out. Fortunately, he didn't call one of our games.
Yeah, might held a grudge. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time. So, Coach, I was going to get your reaction to Scotty Scheffler's Masters menu, but I'm going to do that next week.
Yeah,
Get you to break
sliders and stuff like that. He's got to get his putter going. Forget about his menu, but I do have a joke for you because I know Dayne's an inspiring comedian. I got to give him some material. But this guy's driving downtown, and this policeman pulls up beside him. He said, "Sir, I'm just going to tell you right now, you can't be driving around with these penguins like this. You got to take them to the zoo. You just can't keep them out like that." He said, "Okay, I'll take them." So the next day he drives up again, and here comes the policeman. This guy's got those penguins in the back seat again. He said, "I thought I told you to take those penguins to the zoo." He said, "I did, but I'm taking them to the movies today."
Why do we let him do this?
I've got one for you, Coach. I went to a show on Monday night with my brother. It was on campus. It was Who's Live Anyway, based on the Whose Line Is It Anyway show, the improv show. And so they're getting crowd interjections for a skit they're doing. And so Greg Proops is asking a young lady in the audience for a literary genre. She comes up with romance. And then he asks, he's on a college campus, he asks, "Are you a literary major?" And she says, "I'm 14 years old." And Chip Eston comes up from behind and says, "A literary minor."
Oh, good one. Good one.
I like the penguin joke better.
Hear about the blonde that was walking along and the lady said, "Do you see that dog with one eye?" And she went like this, "I don't see it."
For the audio folks, Coach just covered one of his eyes.
Hey, I'm delirious, but I appreciate everybody putting up with. I'm encouraged about the dogs, though. I'm encouraged about all. I really am. I think.
Hey, well, we're excited. 4:45 tomorrow. I wonder if Kirby Smart's going to let the football team watch the game. That's right in the middle of practice.
I don't think he'll do that, but
I can tell you some classes on campus. Either they're going to be facilitating around the students wanting to watch basketball.
You talk about back in the old days when my girls were in junior high. They used to let the kids watch the basketball tournament in the classroom, and when NC State or North Carolina or wherever they were going to school were playing, they would let them out of class to watch the games. I thought that's pretty cool.
I should have asked Kirby last night, "Hey, you're going to let your team watch it?" He would have shot me daggers.
Well, they go have it on a big board in the indoor building. Yeah.
I'm sure they will, because Kirby will follow it.
It's at 4:45, right?
4:45, and
that's what it's scheduled for. A lot of times, games beforehand may push it around.
Houston plays before us, but if anybody's going out there and they decide to fly into Kansas City and then drive to Wichita, I'm going to tell you how to get there. You just go to the first tree and you take a right, and you're in Wichita.
He's right. I've been. He is correct. That is not hyperbole. That is not exaggeration. Coach nailed it. Good luck to the baseball team this weekend as well. They face Florida, who's really, really good. And, hey, you always want to beat the Gators. So with that, we will see everybody next week. And we appreciate you, everybody, kind of jumping around on times with us, because we're trying to accommodate Kirby Smart's press conferences and such.
Yeah, we may be doing that again next week.
We absolutely may. So we appreciate everybody. Stay on the lookout for when our next show will be, but we'll definitely be talking next week. And next week, maybe we get some scrimmage notes. So
always they won't scrimmage this week. They don't scrimmage when the people are in.
The coaches tournament.
Yeah, they got the coaches coming in.
I forgot all about that. So anyway, we'll talk football next week as well. Everybody,
take care.